Viewers, before we jump in, post your location and the exact time on your clock right now. I want to see how far this story travels. It begins with a single envelope, nothing flashy, just a white rectangle tucked into the mailbox like a snake curled in dry grass. The return address read Silver Pines Ridge Homeowners Association, a name he had successfully avoided for years, mostly by not living in their jurisdiction. His property sat just outside their manicured gates, and he'd taken quiet pride in being able to paint his shed neon orange if he felt like it, without a clipboard brigade arriving to discuss community harmony. Still, curiosity wins. He slit the flap, already bracing himself for the HOA's special brand of logic, and the words inside didn't disappoint. They claimed his home was a hazardous site due to improper storage of volatile chemicals, which, in the HOA universe, is apparently code for OSHA-approved acetylene tanks and cement mix in a ventilated shed. Historians still argue whether HOAs are born petty or trained into it. He laughed once, sharp, humorless, and called his attorney before the coffee even finished brewing. She drafted a tidy response pointing out the obvious: legal storage, airtight compliance, and, more importantly, zero HOA jurisdiction. He figured that would be the end. Then Friday evening arrived with the kind of sunset that makes the pines throw mile-long shadows, and down the street sat a plain white van, no logos, no front plate. Two men inside wearing work jackets with police duty bulges at the hip. One talked into a shoulder mic like a man narrating a nature documentary on how to stalk your prey. He didn't knock, didn't approach, just stayed put. That was enough for him to call Dan Foster, an old army buddy turned private investigator with a gift for pulling strings without leaving fingerprints. Dan's tone, after hearing the details, was dry and immediate. That's not neighborhood watch. The van ghosted away at dusk, headlights dark for the first 100 yards, the sort of subtlety that screams official. By morning, Dan confirmed it. City fleet registration, tied to a public safety inspection unit that, in practice, was moonlighting for Silver Pines Security Committee. The committee's president, one Karen Devo, was already a familiar name in his Irritation Hall of Fame, and her link to Captain John Castle of SWAT fame made the hair at the nape of his neck stir like it had learned a bad secret. It became a chess game on uneven ground. He reinforced his perimeter with weatherproof mics hidden in birdhouses and fence posts, each feed piped to an off-site server. Twice more, the white fin circled, once creeping past at 2 a.m. like a shark testing the tide. Then, one evening, he caught Karen herself pacing along the HOA fence, phone pressed to her ear, pausing just long enough to glance at his windows before melting back into the shadows. Whatever was coming, it wouldn't be another letter. By the following week, the neighborhood air felt heavier, like everyone was holding their breath, and Karen was making her rounds planting the seed that his property was one match away from turning the block into a Michael Bay set piece. It started small, snippets overheard in the coffee shop, a roofer buddy suddenly avoiding eye contact. But by Thursday, the theater went public. 2 HOA community safety SUVs rolled slowly down his street, with hazard lights blinking like parade floats from a dystopian holiday. Volunteers in neon vests plastered orange flyers on light poles, warning of a confirmed hazardous materials risk at an unspecified nearby residence. Anyone with half a brain knew whose house they meant. By dusk, families on the next block were packing cars, kids crying, dogs barking, the whole place moving like an evacuation drill. Channel 8's van pulled up with its satellite dish and a reporter whose smile looked preloaded. He walked them straight to the shed, showed every tank, every OSHA tag, handed over receipts. This is what your volatile chemicals look like. They filmed politely, but he could tell paperwork didn't make for thrilling B-roll. Historians still argue whether truth has ever beaten a good panic. Then came the call from Dan. Barricades in the morning, SWAT on standby, Karen feeding Castle a sense of urgency, so intense it practically hummed through the phone. At first light, the street was cordoned off 2 blocks out, orange tape fluttering, tactical vests moving like chess pieces. Then a distorted loudspeaker ordered him out of his home due to a credible hazardous materials threat. No warrant, no knock, just the bark of authority amplified. He clipped on his body cam, stepped onto the porch, and locked eyes with Castle. "Show me a legal warrant," he said. What came back was an emergency safety order with a forged fire marshal signature. He knew the real man's cramped, looping script, and this was blocky, almost printed. "That's not his hand," he called out. Castle's jaw flexed. "Breached the structure," he ordered. Two techs unrolled rail breacher gear, not the Hollywood kind. Charges meant to crack hinges and shear masonry. The explosion slammed the air out of his lungs, sent glass and siding outward in a spray, sagged the roof line like a tired eyelet. His shed rattled, a tank clanged to the floor. Across the tape, Karen leaned into a news mic, lips forming the words, "We save the neighborhood." Inside, SWAT found nothing, no bombs, no danger, yet Castle waved them deeper, tearing into more walls. From the curb, his camera caught a helmeted officer mutter to another, "Let's move it. We've got a window before council shuts this down." Crisp and damning, those words slipped right into his mic. When they finally left, the house's bones jutted like broken ribs, insulation snowed across the lawn. He stood still, breathing in the acrid dust, already knowing every second was on tape, and that this was only their opening move. The street was barely clear before his driveway turned into a war room. Laura, his attorney, arrived in boots and a leather satchel crammed with forms. Two forensic engineers followed, scanning blast patterns, measuring scorch marks, even noting how the siding curled like burnt paper. Dan set up on the tailgate with coffee and a laptop, pulling clean audio from the birdhouse mics. Karen's voice, sharp and certain. "Once we start, he's not walking back in there," followed by Castle's steady reply about having a window before anyone can stop us. It was the kind of tape lawyers dream about and corrupt officials dread. Laura moved fast. Injunctions, preservation orders, subpoenas for HOA emails, bank records, Castle's logs. Dan dug into HOA finances and surfaced 3 wire transfers to Police Benevolent Consulting LLC, registered to Raymond Castle. Historians still argue whether arrogance or sloppiness sinks more conspiracies. The next night proved the stakes. Cameras caught 2 hooded men creeping along his fence line with a jerry can. County deputies found gasoline, bolt cutters, and an HOA newsletter with his address circled in red. Attempted arson just got stapled to their growing list of charges. Then came the real prize, an internal strategic expansion plan detailing how Silver Pines would annex his land and 2 neighboring parcels under this safety clause, coordinate with a trusted PD liaison for condemnations, and then resell to a friendly developer. Revenue projections sat in neat bullet points like they were talking about new landscaping, not stealing homes. Laura's eyes went cold. This wasn't just civil court now. This was federal territory. They took it to the FBI and to Mason, a local investigative reporter with a nose for rot. Soon the footage, the emails, the money trail were out in the open. Public opinion flipped. Social media lit up. The county sheriff opened his own probe. Castle's SUV started shadowing the property, but that backfired too. Witness intimidation in the sheriff's file. When one of the hooded arsonists flipped for a deal, handing over burner phone texts bought with Castle's credit card, the dominoes fell fast. Castle arrested in his driveway. Karen mid-porch speech when federal agents rolled in, 2 complicit officers in cuffs. The trial was packed, testimony stacked, evidence airtight. Guilty on corruption, fraud, conspiracy, the HOA dissolved, its assets liquidated to pay damages. His award, for $0.22 million and the satisfaction of watching their scheme implode. A year later, the new house stood, fortified concrete, hurricane-rated glass, a bronze plaque reading "Never Again." Private property is not for sale. The foyer doubled as headquarters for a nonprofit helping homeowners fight predatory HOAs. Sometimes, in the still night air, he swore he could almost hear the echo of that first explosion, not the one that took his house, but the one that blew their entire racket to pieces, and the thought always made him smile, because for a guy whose home had been blown up, he slept better now than ever. He sits on the porch sometimes, coffee cooling in his hand, watching the breeze ripple through the pines and letting the quiet stretch as long as it wants. No barricades, no vans, no orders barked through speakers, just the slow, steady rhythm of a place that's his again. The edges of the memory soften here, the way old scars fade under sun. And if a car slows near the gate, he just watches it pass, knowing the cameras will catch it if it matters. The rest, he lets go, because you can't hold a war forever. You can only make sure you win it, and keep what you fought for safe.